Welcome everyone to the Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today let's read The Immortals and see how it compares to The Matrix. So this series is going to be 7 parts. We're on part 3, and today we will be covering pages 41 through 60. So grab your drinks, your snacks, food, whatever, and let's get to it. I hope you all had a great summer. I took a little time off. I spaced this out. I needed a little time off, but now here we're back into this. We're going to be finishing this read through, and it's going to be another, what, 4 weeks or so? 5 weeks? 4 weeks. But we're going to finish comparing everything here. But for today, we're going to get up to page 60. So if you haven't already, please like this stream, share it around to people that you know, and if you're not subscribed already, please do so, and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you get the notifications when I do go live. I also have super chats available. This does take a lot of time out of my day, so any help for my time would be appreciated. But it's not mandatory. So, thank you all for being here. Hey Zenray, good to see you here in the chat. So, we will be doing Let's Talk About It after this session of read-through. So I'm hoping we'll get done here. It's 11 a.m. Central Time right now. I want to get this finished by 1. So we'll read through this up until page 60, and that'll be it for this part 3, and then we will get right into Let's Talk About It episode 25, and that is going to be linked as a piggyback stream. You'll have hopefully a notification in this window somewhere that will tell you or provide you the link to click on so that you can go directly to the Let's Talk stream. But I will have to end this one and then start up the other one. Just so you guys know. It's just me here doing this. I'm the only one running all of this that you see. So I'll need a few minutes to transition over, but we will be doing Let's Talk About It after this show. We will be finishing up that March interview with Sean Bond. We'll be reviewing the rest of that. We got about 40 minutes left of that 3-hour interview. And we'll touch upon some other things too while we're covering all that. I do have other interviews of Tom from the past several months that we do need to touch upon. But if any of you are here from all of the reels I've been posting, welcome. If this is your first time here, there are playlists abound on this channel where you could go and sit from the beginning to the current, and you can get yourself caught up in your own time. But if you're here today, don't worry about it. Just take in what I'm presenting here, and hopefully you'll have a good understanding of what's happening. So let's get these scripts up on the screen here. And again, Zenray, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. I know John and Missing Time, Andreas, Brenda, there's a whole bunch of people that'll probably show up for later. But as you guys trickle in, just make sure to like the video, and please share it if you can. So it'll definitely help. So just give me a moment here. I do have... I have both scripts ready, but for some reason the Matrix isn't popping up here. I have the Immortals right here. Page 41. I'm not sure what's going on. Just give me a second. I don't know why this isn't working. I spent over an hour prepping this. None of the Matrix slides are wanting to load. Alright, I'll fix this live right now. Just give me a moment. So you spend all this time just prepping things and then it doesn't work exactly how you want it to. I don't know why it's giving me trouble here. I might have to pull every page up manually. Yep, I'm gonna have to do this all manually. It's gonna be a little wonky. I'm sorry, guys. I tried my best to have this all ready. It's all here. It's just OBS is not wanting to show the pages. Pain in my ass. Alright. That's how it should be for everything, but I think we might have to just... We're gonna have to roll with it, because for some reason this isn't wanting to do its thing. Hey, Lerny, good to see you here. Okay, we will begin now. I will have to load up every Matrix page because for some reason OBS is not displaying the 20 pages I loaded in. So we're going to have to just go page by page as we read. I'm going to have to load up the Matrix slide. But let's get to it. On the left side is the Matrix, the 1998 shooting script. And over here, on the right side, is the Immortals 1998 copywritten script. But the Matrix came before this Immortal script in terms of continuity. So let's just get started here. Page 41 of the Matrix. Exterior. Fetus fields. On the flash, we pull back from the darkness, which reveals itself to be the black eye of a fetus. Morpheus says, the machines discovered a new form of fusion. All they needed was a small electrical charge to initiate the reaction. The fetus is suspended in a placenta-like husk where its malleable skull is already growing around the brain jack. Morpheus says, the human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120 volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. The husk hanging from a stalk is plucked by a thresher-like farm machine. Morpheus says, "There are fields, endless fields, where human beings are no longer born. We are grown. We rise up, the field stretching in every direction to the horizon, lightning tearing open the sky as the harvester sweeps past us." Interior power plant. From the yawning black of the waste port, we begin to pull back as it snaps shut. Red amniotic gel flows into the pod below us, pooling around a tiny newborn that suckles its feed tube. Morpheus says, "For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. But then I saw the fields with my own eyes, watched them liquefy the dead so they could be fed intravenously to the living, and standing there, facing the efficiency, the pure, horrifying precision, I came to realize the obviousness of the truth." Still pulling back, we see the image of the power plant now on the television as we return to the white space of the construct. So, while I read this page 41, I can visualize what's happening in the actual final cut of the film. This matches up almost exactly to what we are shown as the final product. Now let's see what page 41 of the Immortals reads. Alan says, "So what's really going on?" Jim asks, "What do you mean?" Alan says, "I've known you a long time, Jim. You're hiding something." Jim asks, "Really?" "As far as I'm concerned, it was all a mistake. Now we can get real jobs. I'm tired of chasing ghosts." Alan asks, "They bought you, didn't they?" Jim pushes the elevator button. Alan says, "You, Jim the Crusader, sold out. What's the price to sell out your friends?" Jim says, "Look, drop it." The elevator doors open and only Jim gets on. Alan stares at Jim. Alan sarcastically says, "Take good care of yourself, Jim." Interior, Jim's house, night. Jim and Julia are getting ready for bed. Brittany has entered the room. Brittany says, "I brushed my teeth." Jim quietly says, "Good, honey." Brittany says to Julia, "Daddy's not happy anymore. It's okay. Daddy says he..." And it just ends. Continues on page 42. Daddy says he has a lot in his mind. So, those pages didn't match up. I don't know how, like you have to go really out of your way to be like, you're gonna steal whatever this story is and try to pass it off as this. Like, there's a lot more work involved than just swapping scenes out. And I don't know how Tom comes to the conclusion that this stole from this. I don't understand it. But that's why we're here. We're here to see what the differences are in these scripts. And as of right now, there's really not much to go on. Let's see if page 42 will load. No, it's not going to load. So, alright, I'm going to have to edit this over so that we can see page 42. Just give me a moment. I had this all prepped for those that are just tuning in now. We're just going to have to leave it a little rough around the edges. I apologize for that. Hopefully the re-upload I do will be a little better in terms of having no stop gaps or anything. All right, now we're on page 42. And we're going to continue on here. So page 42 continues from 41 from the Matrix, and they are still in the construct, the white construct. So let's start that. Interior construct. Morpheus steps into view as he clicks off the television. Morpheus says, "What is the Matrix?" Control. He opens the back of the television remote control. Morpheus says, "The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this." He holds up a copper-top battery. Neo exclaims, "No, I don't believe it. It's not possible." Morpheus says, "I didn't say that it would be easy, Neo. I just said that it would be the truth." Neo exclaims, "Stop! Let me out! I want out!" Interior main deck. His eyes snap open and he thrashes against the chair, trying to rip the cable from the back of his neck. Neo exclaims, "Get this thing out of me!" Trinity says, "Easy, Neo, easy." Dozer holds him while Trinity unlocks it. Once it's out, he tears away from them, falling as he trips free of the harness. Neo shouts, "Don't touch me! Get away from me!" On his hands and knees, he reels as the world spins. Sweat pours off him as a pressure builds inside his skull, as if his brain had been put into a centrifuge. Neo says, "I don't believe it. I don't believe it." And this is continued on to the next page. So now let's see what the Immortals has to say on the same page, 42. These are, again, they're in two different settings, different characters, no likeness of character names. That's already not off to a good start for supporting whatever Tom is claiming here. But let's read page 42. So Brittany leaves. I guess she leaves the bedroom. Julia asks, "Shall we talk about it?" Jim says, "No. I mean, I can't." Jim kisses Julia on the head. Jim says, "Everything's fine." Julia says, Sure, I'll buy that." Do you think I'm suddenly stupid, Jim? I mean, it's been what? The entire day now that you've refused to tell me what it is exactly that's bothering you? Jim says, I'm fine. I'm just trying to adjust to the new job. Julia says, so do we talk about it? Or should we go on like this forever? Can't you see that I don't want anything coming between us, and whatever's eating you is doing that in a big way? Julia embraces Jim and speaks softly. Julia says, I want you back. That guy I married with the sense of humor. Remember him? Julia kisses Jim's neck and speaks softly near the transmitter. Julia says, let me take care of you. Julia continues to kiss Jim's neck, unaware of the transmitter as she talks. Julia says, do you want me to touch you? Just tell me what you want. I'll do whatever you need. I want you inside me. Okay, so that's the end of page 42 into page 43 for the Immortals. So they're getting into more intimate talk here. And I do have to load the next page here for the Matrix. Yeah, that was a lot easier this time. Okay, so page 43 of the Matrix, Neo is saying he doesn't believe it, he doesn't believe it. So let's continue reading that scene here. Cypher says, he's going to pop. Vomiting violently, Neo pitches forward and blacks out. Interior, Neo's room. He blinks, regaining consciousness. The room is dark. Neo is stretched out on his bed. Neo asks, I can't go back, can I? Morpheus is sitting like a shadow on a chair in the far corner. Morpheus says, no. But if you could, would you really want to? Deep down, Neo knows the answer. Morpheus continues, I feel that I owe you an apology. There is a rule that we do not free a mind once it reaches a certain age. It is dangerous. They have trouble letting go. Their mind turns against them. I've seen it happen. I'm sorry. I broke the rule because I had to. He stares into the darkness, confessing as much to himself as to Neo. Morpheus says, when the Matrix was first built, there was a man born inside that had the ability to change what he wanted, to remake the Matrix as he saw fit. It was this man that freed the first of us and taught us the truth. As long as the Matrix exists, the human race will never be free. He pauses, and the scene is continued on to the next page. So, let's see how that compares to page 43 of the Immortals. Jim says, don't talk dirty. Jim pulls away. There are tears in his eyes. Jim says, I'm sorry, honey. It'll be okay, I promise. Julia doesn't know what to say as Jim goes into the bathroom. Interior, observation van, night. Berenger sits with a headset on among surveillance equipment. He is glossy-eyed as he stares at a color surveillance picture of Julia. Sorry, I had to lower the volume a little bit. He is glossy-eyed as he stares... he is glossy-eyed as he stares at a color surveillance picture of Julia in his hand. His breathing is deep and heavy. He pushes a button and plays back Julia's words. Julia, voiceover. Do you want me to touch you? Just tell me what you want. I'll do whatever you need. I want you inside me. So, Berenger was playing back a surveillance recording of this interaction in their bedroom. And interior, Jim's bathroom, night. Jim is fighting back a swell of emotion and tears. He looks in the mirror at the listening mole on his neck. He goes to write a note and then hesitates. So this here again is saying that the jack in the back of the neck is actually almost like a push pin the size of a mole. That's what this immortal script is saying the jack is. And I have a lot more to talk about with that concept, not appearing here first, but much earlier from several other authors in the sci-fi community. But we'll touch on that later. So he goes to write a note and then hesitates. Jim says, "Go on to bed, honey. I'll be fine. I'm going to take a bath." Jim runs water. Weeping, he writes a note to leave for Julia in the morning. Man, that's a sad scene. And what the heck's up with Jim? So, interior, Jim's bedroom, night. Jim and Julia are in bed. Julia is asleep while Jim lies awake in the dark. We hear Jim's note in a voiceover as he lies with his eyes open. Jim, voiceover. Julia, I am coming back for you and Brittany. We must go away. I am bugged with a listening device, so we will have no opportunity to talk. You are being watched. Act as normally as you can. Do not pack anything. Have Brittany stay inside. Beware of a man that entered our house last night. He is dangerous. I will always love you. Jim. Trust no one. So that's page 43 for both of these scripts. And now we are looking at page 44. And again, I just need to load the next page. Just give me one moment. We're on page 44, right? Larney says in the comments here, the Tom Althouse script isn't even bad, and so far the only similarity I see in the scripts is something attached to the neck. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing you are. It's, I don't know. Tom likes stretching a lot of this stuff, and I don't know why. Like, as a standalone film, I'd say, yeah, it'd be pretty good. But I don't see it being like The Matrix. In fact, Tom didn't even think it was similar to the Immortals when he saw The Matrix in the movie theaters. So there's that, too, to keep in mind. I'm just trying to crop this down a little more. All right, let's just keep going here. It's page 44 for both of the scripts. We'll start with The Matrix on the left side. And this is still Morpheus talking to Neo in Neo's room on the Nebuchadnezzar. So Morpheus says, when he died, the Oracle prophesied his return and envisioned that his coming would hail the destruction of the Matrix, an end to the war, and freedom for our people. That is why there are those of us that have spent our entire lives searching the Matrix, looking for him. Neo can feel his eyes on him. Morpheus says, I did what I did because I believe that search is over. Or I believe the search is over. He stands up. Morpheus says, get some rest. You're going to need it. Neo says, for what? Morpheus responds, your training. Interior, hovercraft. There is no morning. There is only darkness, and then the fluorescent light sticks flicker on. Interior, Neo's room. Neo is awake in his bed, staring up at the lights. The door opens, and Tank steps inside. Tank says, morning. Did you sleep? Neo says, no. Tank says, you will tonight. I guarantee it. I'm Tank. I'll be your operator. He offers his hand and Neo shakes it. He notices that Tank doesn't have any jacks. And now for page 44, the Immortals. Interior, Jim's bedroom, morning. Jim's hand pulls the note, or puts the note on the unmade bed. Jim is dressed in his suit for work. Julia calls from downstairs. Julia voiceover. Honey, hurry. Your breakfast is ready. Jim responds, I'll be right there. Interior, Jim's kitchen, morning. Julia is placing Jim's breakfast on the table. Brittany is watching Bugs Bunny cartoons on the television in the living room. The television volume is loud. So I just want to say right here, Tom would have needed Warner Brothers' permission to even use Bugs Bunny. But that's neither here nor there now. Julia says, Brittany, come and eat your breakfast. Brittany runs into... Oh, okay. I don't know if I finished reading that whole thing there with Bugs Bunny. It says the television volume is loud. Julia says, Brittany, come and eat your breakfast. Brittany runs into the kitchen, leaving the television on. Jim comes down the stairs and is startled by an explosion. Daffy Duck has just been blown up by Elmer Fudd on television. Daffy's bill is cockeyed on his blackened face. Jim turns the television off. He goes over to Brittany and hugs her in her chair. Jim says, I love you, Munchkin. Brittany, eating her cereal as she talks. I love you too, Daddy. Daddy, promise you'll play with me when you get home. Jim says, all right. Brittany asks, promise? Jim says, I promise, honey. Brittany asks, and don't forget my birthday is coming, and I'll be how big? So, you know, I want to say one good thing about this. I do like the reaction of Jim with the explosion, like he's suffering from some PTSD, but it's the cartoon making the noises, and then he shakes it off, right? That's how I envisioned it when I read it here. I thought that was pretty good, but the only thing is, Tom would need to get permission from Warner Brothers to even show Looney Tunes. So that's page 44. Now let's see page 45. And we're moving along at a decent pace here too. It would be a little smoother if everything worked with my Matrix script upload here, but I have to do this all manually again, and it sucks, but that's just the way we have to work with this today. So, page 45. Continued the scene with Tank and Neo. Neo says, you don't have... And he's talking about the jacks. Tank asks, any holes? Nope. Me and my brother Dozer, we are 100% pure, old-fashioned, homegrown human. Born free. Right here in the real world. Genuine child of Zion. Neo asks, Zion? Tank says, if this war ended tomorrow, Zion is where the party would be. Neo asks, it's a city? Tank says, the last human city, the only place we got left. Neo asks, where is it? Tank responds, deep underground, near the Earth's core where it's still warm. You live long enough, you might even see it. He smiles. God damn, I got to tell you, I'm fairly excited to see what you are capable of. I mean, if Morpheus is right and all. We're not supposed to talk about any of that, but if you are, well, then this is an exciting time. We got a lot to do, so let's get to it. Interior main deck. Neo is plugged in, hanging in one of the suspension chairs. And this continues on to page 46. So let's see how this compares to page 46 of the Immortals. Lorne says in the comments he can get around that by not using Looney Tunes, but just a generic kids show. It's not that difficult to fix. And you're right. Yeah, it's really not that difficult. But knowing Tom, he would want it to be exact to whatever he wrote, and he's going to say something like it's not staying true to his vision. So in Tom's ideal perfect world, he would have Looney Tunes being played on the TV. But yeah, if you were to make that today, you can do some generic cartoon. There's so much you could do now with even AI to make a generic cartoon that looks like Looney Tunes and it's not, and it could still serve that same purpose. Or you just have someone hand draw it. But that would take a lot more time. So let's see page 46 of the Immortals. Or is this... No, this is 45, right? Yeah, it's 45. My bad. So, page 45 of the Immortals. It's on the right side of the screen here. And previous page, Brittany asks if he knows how big Brittany will be. So Jim replies, 6, sweetheart. Brittany says, I made you an invitation for my party, but I forgot it at school. Jim says, give me one more hug. Brittany stands on her chair and hugs him. Jim says, you be good for mommy, and you do what she says. Brittany says, I will. Julia says, hurry and eat, Jim. Jim says, I'm not hungry, honey. I'm sorry. Jim embraces Julia. Jim declares, I love you. You know that, don't you? Jim is starting to cry. Julia says, Jim, you're scaring me. What's wrong? What is wrong? Jim responds, nothing. Really. Brittany asks, why is Daddy crying? Jim ends his embrace with Julia and regains his composure. Jim responds, because I love you guys so much. There's things I want to say about this, but I don't know. The dialogue from Jim is coming off to me as something that a woman would be saying to their husband, not the other way around. And he's being very secretive about why he's behaving the way he is. So it's kind of weird. But again, these two scenes do not match up whatsoever. We're talking about matchups. There's supposed to be over 100 matchups. What is this? Why are we in 2 different settings, 2 different scenes, different characters? And if this was something that was ripped off and Warner Brothers used it, I cannot see it here. And this is me being as objective as possible. So here's page 46. And let me get page 46 of the Immortals up. Zenray says, you're spot on with that. I assume, Zen, you're talking about my interpretation of how the dialogue is playing out. Yes. Okay. Yeah. And hello, Beyond the Box. Good to see you here. We're in the process of reading both of these scripts page by page. By the way, the last 2 pages, I think there's like there's 2 pages in the Immortals that are both labeled 57, so it kind of messes up the flow a little bit at the end, but when we get to it, you'll see what I mean. So, page 46 for the Matrix, let's start with that, and that's on the left side. This is the continued scene of Neo and Tank talking in Neo's room on the Nebuchadnezzar. Tank says, "We're supposed to load all these operations programs first, but this is some major boring shit. Why don't we start with something a little fun?" Tank smiles as he plops into his operator's chair. He begins flipping through a tall carousel loaded with microdiscs. Tank asks, "How about some combat training?" Neo reads the label on the disc. Neo asks, "Jiu-jitsu? I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu?" Tank slides the disc into Neo's supplement drive. Neo says, "No way." Smiling, Tank punches the load code. His body jumps against the harness as his eyes clamp shut. The monitors kick wildly as his heart pounds, adrenaline surges, and his brain sizzles. An instant later, his eyes snap open. Neo exclaims, "Holy shit." Tank says, "Hey, Mikey, I think he I'm adding words where I shouldn't be." Tank exclaims, "Hey, Mikey, he likes it. Ready for more?" Neo exclaims, "Hell yes." Interior main deck. Close on a computer monitor as gray pixels slowly fill a small half-empty box. It is a meter displaying how much download time is left. The title bar reads, "Combat Series 10 of 12. File categories flashing beneath it. Savate, Jiu-Jitsu, Kenpo, Drunken Boxing." Morpheus walks in, and then the scene is continued on to the next page. You know, I always liked seeing the Drunken Boxing portion in the final cut of the film. I thought that was pretty cool. It was funny to me. It still is. And I do believe this line of dialogue by Tank, quoting that it was some older commercial, I think from the 80s. "Hey, Mikey, he likes it." But in the final cut of the film, he says, "I think he likes it." So he adds the "I think" portion to it. And that's what I was reciting, but it's not on the page here, so I shouldn't be reading it like that. So page 46 of The Immortals. Let's go ahead and read this. Brittany exclaims, "Daddy really loves us." Jim says, "I gotta get to work." Brittany gets up and skips into the living room as Jim heads to the front door. Brittany singing to herself a made-up tune. "Daddy loves us, Daddy loves us, Daddy loves us so much." Julia runs after Jim. Julia says, "Jim." She takes hold of his arm. Julia continues, "You're not going anywhere until we settle this. What is wrong?" I'm going to pause here because this still feels like the genders are swapped in a way. It's really bizarre. Usually the masculine character would be stopping an indecisive, submissive character, but it's flipped. Julie is the dominant character, Jim is passive. I don't understand it. And Zen agrees with me, too. Let's finish reading this page, though. And again, the next line of dialogue, again, is another gender swap to me. And this is me just objectively reading this. Jim says, "Everything's fine." Jim pulls away from Julia and goes to his car. Julia exclaims, "Jim!" Exterior Jim's house, morning. Jim gets into his car as Julia, concerned, watches him leave. The car pulls out of the driveway. A neighbor lady has been watching. Interior Jim's car, morning. Jim is driving. Alan pops up in the back seat, surprising Jim. Alan is untidy and looks deeply disturbed. Alan says, "They killed my family." Yikes. So, like, that's a nice twist at the bottom of the page here. I do want to know what happens next. But the passiveness of Jim Reese here just doesn't sit right with me. Like, I'm not going to recommend how to make it better. I'm just saying it doesn't flow the way I would like it to. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't like giving other people my ideas. And I mean, I'll share my thoughts here with things, but like, I'm not going to rewrite the script for Tom. Like, that's not the objective here. Alright, so we're moving on to page 47. And again, we're reading up to page 60, and after that, we are going to stop this stream and go right into Let's Talk About It, episode 25. And I have some nice treats for you for that one. Because I'll be able to share more of my opinion over on the Let's Talk show, since we're trying to keep this very objective here in the read-through. So page 47 of the Matrix. We are continuing the previous scene. Neo was just doing some of the training with Tank, and Morpheus asks, "How is he?" Tank says, 10 hours straight. He's a machine. Neo's body spasms and relaxes as his eyes open, breath hissing from his lips. He looks like he just orgasmed. Neo says, "This is incredible. I know Kung Fu." Morpheus demands, "Show me." Interior dojo. They are standing in a very sparse Japanese-style dojo. Morpheus says, "This is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of the Matrix. It has the same basic rules. Rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be beat, others can be broken. Understand? Neo nods as Morpheus assumes a fighting stance. Morpheus says, "Then hit me if you can." Neo assumes a similar stance, cautiously circling until he gives a short cry and launches a furious attack. It is like a Jackie Chan movie at high speed, fists and feet striking from every angle as Neo presses his attack, but each and every blow is blocked by effortless speed. Interior main deck. While their minds battle in the programmed reality, the two bodies appear quite serene, suspended in the drive chairs. Tank monitors their life systems, noticing that Neo is wildly and chaotically lit up as opposed to the slow and steady rhythm of Morpheus. So I like this. So we're getting Morpheus challenging Neo here. We jump straight to the dojo. We get explained the rules of the construct that they built for this training program. And Morpheus is just like, show me what you got. So now, page 47 of the Immortals, Jim has just left his home after leaving a note on his bed for his wife to let her know that they're all being watched and recorded and to not panic and not pack up or do anything. He leaves the house without eating his breakfast, and as he's driving, his buddy Alan is in the back seat, and he just exclaimed that they killed his whole family. So Jim says, "Shit!" Jim skids the car to a stop. Jim says, "Get out of my car." Alan, in great distress, says, "What the hell is going on?" Jim says, "Get the hell out of my car." Alan says, "Fuck you, Jim." Alan grabs Jim's throat. Alan demands, "Tell me what's going on. I've been followed and now my family's dead. Tell me who's doing it or I'll kill you." In a struggle, Jim breaks Alan's hold, opens the passenger side door, and shoves Alan from the car. The struggle continues as Jim speaks. Jim declares, "I can't help you. I'm sorry. Stay away from my family." Alan holds onto the door and is dragged as Jim accelerates the car. Alan says, "They said you did it. You bastard. You fucking bastard." Alan falls away as Jim continues to speed on. Damn. Jim pounds the steering wheel as he talks. So I guess he's like accentuating every word here with like slamming the steering wheel. Damn it, shit. To Berenger, "Don't hurt my family. I just turned my back on my best friend. You better not hurt them. Don't hurt them." So there's a good amount of drama and escalation here. Like, I'm liking it. The coldness of Jim, though, is kind of weird to me. Because if this is his best friend, like, there should be a lot more, like, conflicting emotions that should be displayed here, and there's not. But again, I'm not going to edit the script so that it's more to my liking. This is not my script, so what am I to say? All we're doing is a read-through. So now page 48. We got page 48 here for both scripts. Let's start with the Matrix on the left side. Yeah, we're on the right pages. Right, I just wanted to make sure we're still on the right page. Okay, so left side of the screen, Matrix. Interior, mess hall. Mouse bursts into the room, interrupting dinner. Mouse exclaims, Morpheus is fighting Neo. All at once, everyone bolts for the door. Interior, dojo. Neo's face is knotted, teeth clenched, as he hurls himself at Morpheus. Morpheus says, good. Adaptation. Improvisation. But your weakness isn't your technique. Morpheus attacks him, and it is like nothing we have seen. His feet and fists are everywhere, taking Neo apart. For every blow Neo blocks, 5 more hit their marks until Neo falls. Panting, on his hands and knees, blood spits from his mouth, speckling the white floor of the dojo. Morpheus asks, how did I beat you? Neo says, you're too fast. Morpheus says, do you think my being faster, stronger, has anything to do with my muscles in this place? Neo is frustrated, still unable to catch his breath. Morpheus asks, do you believe that's air you are breathing now? Neo stands, nodding slowly. Morpheus says, again. Their fists fly with pneumatic speed. And now we are reading page 48 of the Immortals on the right side of the screen here. Interior, Jim's bedroom, morning. Julia picks up Jim's note from the unmade bed and begins to read it. She calls to Brittany. Julia calls, Brittany. She continues to read the note. She hears the sound of a creaking floorboard and looks up, frightened. Julia asks, Jim? So she hears footsteps that are different from her daughter's, I guess. It probably should have been distinguished here, but it's not. No answer. She hears the creak again. It is from the hall. The door is across the room and open. The phone is nearby. She picks up the phone. It's dead. She taps the receiver a couple of times and pulls it down. A shadow can be seen on the hall carpet. Julia looks shaken. She crumbles the note slowly in her hand. She tries to regain her composure and speaks again. Julia asks, Jim, is that you? A low voice answers from the hall. Voice. Yes, honey? It is not Jim's voice. Julia is now sweating and looking wild with passion and fear. Berenger appears in the doorway. He stares at her body. His eyes are glassy. Brittany calls from another part of the house. Brittany asks, Mommy? Julia says, Brittany, don't come here. Berenger says, Your husband is crazy, Julia. I'm here to help you. Julia to Brittany, lock your door, sweetie. So Berenger's been watching them, and now he's stepped into the house after Jim has left. So that's what we're looking at here. And we're moving on to the next page. Again, I had all of this loaded up beforehand, but for some reason OBS is not letting me load up all the stuff I pre-ingested, so I have to keep on moving around the Matrix script, but we got it, so don't worry. We're gonna get through it. I guess really what I have to do, I need to make sure that this is all loaded up in one go without closing OBS, because when I close it and open it again, then that's when this issue started happening with the Matrix script. Alright, so we're now on page 49 of both scripts. And let me just center the Immortals to the right a little bit. You can barely see me on here. So page 49. Interior, main deck. Everyone is gathered behind Tank, watching the fight like watching a game of Mortal Kombat. Mouse exclaims, Jesus Christ, he's fast. Look at his neurokinetics. They're way above normal. Interior, dojo. Morpheus begins to press Neo, countering blows while slipping in several stinking slaps. Morpheus says, Come on, Neo. What are you waiting for? You're faster than this. Don't think you are. Know you are. Whack. Morpheus cracks Neo again. Neo's face twists with rage as the speed of the blows rises like a drum solo. Morpheus exclaims, Come on, stop trying to hit me and just hit me. Wham! A single blow catches Morpheus on the side of the head, knocking off his glasses. Interior, main deck. There are several gasps. Mouse. I don't believe it. Interior, dojo. Morpheus rubs his face, then smiles. Neo says, I know what you're trying to do. Morpheus replies, I'm trying to free your mind, Neo. But all I can do is show you the door. You're the one that has to step through it. Tank, load the jump program. So most of you that are here, you know where this scene is leading. They're going to the cityscape. They're going onto the roof of the skyscraper next to do the jump between the buildings. And now page 49 of the Immortals. We have Berenger, who's entered the house of Jim and Julia, when only Julia and Brittany are there. And Julia's just told Brittany to go close her door and lock herself in her room, because Berenger's there and he's not supposed to be there. Berenger says, I have the report right here. He's a dangerous man. Julia is silently freaking out. Berenger says, Julia, he's a paranoid schizophrenic. Julia says, no. Berenger replies, the doctor is 100% sure. Berenger starts to step toward Julia. Berenger says, "Let me help you." Julia says, "Get out." Berenger replies, "For your child's sake, you've got to trust me. Jim's dangerous." Julia repeats her demand, "Get out." Berenger says he's killed a couple of people already. Berenger is now only a few feet away from Julia. Berenger says, "I've enjoyed listening to you." Exterior intersection, morning. Jim's car is heading toward a green light. A speeding tractor trailer approaches on the intersecting highway, not slowing down. Interior, Jim's car. Jim does not see the tractor trailer until he enters the intersection. The truck's horn blasts. Jim's car is hit by the truck. So that was page 49 going into page 50. Again, two very different scenes are taking place in these scripts. Very different. And if you know, I know you, those of you watching noticed that Berenger dropped the paranoid schizophrenic line. And it's the thing that Tom says that people in his real life has accused him of being. So it's a little curious to me. But let's continue on with page 50. We are now halfway through today's show. And hopefully we will wrap up at the 2-hour mark, but we'll see how this goes. So page 50 of The Matrix. Interior, hovercraft. APOC and Switch exchange looks as Tank grabs for the disc. Interior, construct, rooftop, day. Morpheus and Neo are again in the white space of the construct. Beneath their feet, we see the jump program rush up at them until they are standing on a rooftop in a city skyline. Morpheus says, "Let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, disbelief. Free your mind." Morpheus spins, running hard at the edge of the rooftop, and jumps. He sails through the air, his coat billowing out behind him like a cape as he lands on the rooftop across the street. Neo says, "Shit." Neo looks down at the street 20 floor below, then at Morpheus as impossible, then at Morpheus, an impossible 50 feet away. Neo says, "Okie dokie, free my mind." "Right, no problem." He takes a deep breath and starts to run. Interior, main deck. They are transfixed. Mouse asks, "What if he makes it?" APOC says, "No way, not possible." Tank says, "No one's ever made their first jump." Mouse says, "I know, but what if he does?" APOC says, "He won't." And now page 50 of the Immortals. Jim's car is hit by the truck. Exterior, the accident is real. The Predator truck devouring its prey. Interior, car, Jim's point of view. A broken windshield with blood on it. Jim hears Julia's and Brittany's voices. Julia, voiceover. I don't want anything coming between us. Brittany, voiceover. Daddy, promise you'll play with me when you get home. Our vision fades to black with the sound of a rush of air. Exterior, Jim's car, morning. Jim's bloody body is pulled from his badly mangled car by rescue workers. His mouth and eyes are open but frozen. A cover is placed over his head. Interior, lab, day. Jim's body is on life support systems. He is frozen with his injuries. Technicians in protective suits place his body in a freezing unit and turn it on. Interior, hospital room, day. Jim's point of view from black. As he revives, a doctor and a nurse are tending to him. The nurse asks, "How do you feel?" Jim is badly bruised. Jim replies, "Like I was hit by a Mack truck." The doctor is looking at a file he is holding as he talks. Doctor says, "You had quite an accident." And you know what I say? No shit. I want to know where, like, there's answers that I want to look for in the next following pages. So I guess it's good. It makes me want to keep reading, right? And that's one of the main goals with writing a script, is you want to keep whoever's reading the script interested. Okay, page 51. We are continuing the jump program scene here. Trinity stares at the screen, her fists clenching as she whispers. So Trinity whispers, "Come on." Exterior, rooftop. Summoning every ounce of strength in his legs, Neo launches himself into the air in a single maniacal shriek, but comes up drastically short. His eyes widen as he plummets. Stories fly by, the ground rushing up at him. But as he hits, the ground gives way, stretching like a trampier net. He bounces and flips, slowly coming to a rest, flat on his back. He laughs, a bit unsure, wiping the wind-blown tears from his face. Morpheus exits the building and helps him to his feet. Morpheus asks, "Do you know why you didn't make it?" Neo answers, "Because I didn't think I would." Morpheus smiles and nods. Now that's actually a line of dialogue and an interaction between those two characters that I wish actually made it to the final cut, because that does a lot for the Neo character in terms of like learning how to navigate this new world that he's been introduced to. I think that would have been really good to have that question and answer right there in the final cut. Interior, main deck. They break up. So the crowd that was together on the main deck, they're like disinterested now. The show's over for them watching the two of them in there. Mouse asks, "What does it mean?" Switch says, "It doesn't mean anything." Cypher says, "Everyone falls the first time. Right, Trinity?" But Trinity has already left. Neo's eyes open as Tank eases the plug out. He tries to move and groans, cradling his ribs. While Tank helps Morpheus, Neo spits blood into his hand. And it continues on to page 52. So now let's see what page 51 of the Immortals reads. And hey, Missing Time, good to see you here. Good morning. We are currently reading through up to page 60 today, and so we're on page 51. We got 10 pages left for today. And we will be doing Let's Talk About It right after this show, so we're doing back-to-back shows today. There should be a link at the end of this stream that'll pop up in the window that'll take you right to the Let's Talk stream. You guys can gather up there while I do things behind the scenes, so it's gonna be a good show. I have a brand new updated intro for Let's Talk. I think you all will appreciate it because I've been fine-tuning how I do my intros. I think it looks really nice for today. So if you're sticking around for anything, in the very least, at least look at the intro. But I know a lot of you stick around for the whole thing. So page 51 of the Immortals. We're continuing with Jim in the hospital and doctors talking to him. You had quite an accident and all that. So Jim asks, "How is the other driver?" The doctor says, "Judging from your records, I'd say he died years ago." Jim asks, "What do you mean? How long have I been gone?" Doctor to the nurse, "Notify the security officer that he's awake." The nurse replies, "Yes, doctor." The nurse leaves the room. Jim asks, "Where's my family?" Doctor says, "I wasn't aware you had one. It's not listed in your records." Berenger enters the room. He has not aged. So there's... Oh, yeah. I'll give my thoughts once we're finished with the page. Berenger asks, "How are you, Jim? You look well." Jim asks, "Where are they?" Berenger says, "Thank you, doctor. That will be all." The doctor leaves. Jim asks, "Why aren't they listed?" Berenger replies, "You're not allowed to see family members. They're fine." He pauses. "Your injuries were so complicated, we had to freeze you with them." There's no indication... Okay, so we're at the end of page 51. There's no indication that time has passed. Other than the script saying that Berenger enters the room, he has not aged. It's the only indication that time has passed. That's kind of crazy. Alright, we're on to page 52 now. And page 52 of the Matrix, at the top, Neo says, "I thought it wasn't real." Morpheus replies, "Your mind makes it real." Neo stares at the blood. Neo asks, "If you are killed in the Matrix, do you die here?" Morpheus replies, "The body cannot live without the mind." Interior, Neo's room. Trinity enters from the hall, carrying a tray of food. Trinity says, "Neo, I saved you some dinner." She sees him passed out on the bed. She sets the tray down and pulls the blanket over him. She pauses, her face close to him, then inhales lightly, breathing in the scent of him before slowly pulling away. Now that's some very good stage direction written into a script. That gives an actor everything they need to show more with body language. I really like that. An interior hall. Trinity steps out of Neo's room to find Cypher watching her. Cypher says, "I don't remember you ever bringing me dinner." Trinity says nothing. Cypher continues, "There's something about him, isn't there?" Trinity asks, "Don't tell me you're a believer now." And the scene continues on to the next page. So now let's see what the Immortals page 52 reads. And Jim is in the hospital. For some reason, we are, as the audience, we are explained to that the time has passed greatly, and the character Berenger is the one that reveals this. So there needed to be a little more visual cues to show that time has passed. But how can you do that in a hospital? Anyways, let's read from the top of page 52 and see what the Immortals reads as. Jim says, "You said it would be a simulation." Berenger replies, "They finished repairing you yesterday." Jim asks, "How many years?" Berenger says, "You've been assigned to me. I'll get you started in your new life." Jim says, "How about starting with a transfer?" Berenger replies, "I don't see what they see in you." Berenger starts to leave. Jim asks, "How long?" Berenger turns to face Jim. Berenger replies, 70 years. Berenger seems to enjoy Jim's look of shock, then exits. Exterior, MCA&T, phone and information terminal, night. Jim, still recovering from his injuries, uses a viewer to try and locate his family. Jim's point of view, the screen. Julia Reese, no record. Brittany Reese, no record. Jim starts to walk away as the screen changes to a picture and address of a Willows Adult Care Center. He writes the address on his hand. Interior, Willows Adult Care Center, lobby, day. Jim is dealing with a suspicious receptionist. Elderly patients are seated, and this continues on to the next page, are seated about the room. Brittany is not among them. And before we read any more, I want to move this Matrix script so that we are looking at the same page. I forgot how much water I need to drink in order to stay hydrated here while I read. It's all good. So page 53. On the left here, the Matrix from the top. Let's continue the scene with Cypher and Trinity. Cypher says, I just keep wondering if Morpheus is so sure, why doesn't he take him to the Oracle? She would know. Trinity says Morpheus will take him when he's ready. She turns and watches her walk away. Exterior City Street training program day. Morpheus moves effortlessly through a crowded downtown street while Neo struggles to keep up, constantly bumped and shouldered off the path. It's one of my favorite scenes here. Morpheus says, the Matrix is a system, Neo, and that system is our enemy. But when you are inside and you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, lawyers, teachers, carpenters, the minds of the very people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of the system, and that makes them our enemy. A cop writing a parking ticket stares at Neo from behind his sunglasses. Morpheus continues, you have to understand that most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. A beautiful woman in a red dress smiles at Neo as she passes by. Morpheus asks, were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? Neo replies, I was... ... And it continues on to the next page. I'll read the first line from it. Morpheus says, look again. Neo turns just as Agent Smith levels a gun at his face. Neo screams. So let's read page 53 of the Immortals. See how that matches up with 53 of the Matrix. Well, that's good, Brenda. I'd like to hear more. And I hope it's going well for you. Please be sure to drink water. And I know you're probably making sure to take care of that, so that's good to hear. So page 53 of the Immortals, receptionist says, while looking at a computer screen, Brittany Reese, here she is. She pushes a keyboard button. She has Alzheimer's and is very ill. It's recommended she doesn't have visitors. It also says here she has no family. So are you supposed to be a friend of hers? Jim's point of view computer screen shows Brittany Reese in room 107. The receptionist glances up and meets Jim's eyes. Jim replies, yes, an old friend. Receptionist says, well, then, as a friend, you will understand she needs rest most. Besides, it says here, she has the mind of a 6-year-old, so she wouldn't be able to understand you anyway. Next, Mr. Joyner, an elderly man, steps up. Receptionist says, hello, Mr. Joyner. Here to see Betty? Jim goes down the hall as if he is leaving. The receptionist watches Jim as Mr. Joyner responds to her. Mr. Joyner says, it's our anniversary. The receptionist looks back at Mr. Joyner. The receptionist says, how nice. And in the hall, Jim is looking for Brittany's room. He stops at room 107. Man, you know, they're like the time jump here. I think I get what Tom was going for. It's so drastic that, like, you're pulled out of. We're on page 53. It just throws out everything before it with the time jump. Right? Like, what happened to Julia? She's just dead now? And this is all from, like, while we're watching this movie, because we're reading a script that's supposed to be a movie, Jim, instead of being intimate with his wife Julia, he behaves very standoffish with her the night before because he's paranoid about being watched by Berenger. Then, in the morning, Julia makes him breakfast. He doesn't want to eat it. She tries to talk to him about what's happening, why he's acting so weird. He's being standoffish and cold and saying platitudes. And then he gets in the car to leave and drives somewhere, and his best friend's in the back saying his whole family got killed, and then Jim's like, no, get out of my fucking car. And then he gets on the highway and gets in an accident, and then he's in the hospital, and 70 years later. But it's really hard for the audience to realize it's 70 years later. So what are we supposed to be caring about here? That's my question. What are we supposed to be caring about here? If we just like, what? Are we just supposed to be feeling sorry for Jim? It doesn't make that much sense to me. That's awesome, Beyond the Box. That's great news, especially knowing it's been difficult for you with everything else going on. So that's a good sign. Whatever you're doing, it's helping. Okay, so now we're on page 54. On the left side is the Matrix. We're going to read from the top. And this is the city program, them walking through the crowds of people. Very iconic scene for this movie. The thing that really bothers me here is we're having iconic scene after iconic scene in this Matrix script, and I'm not seeing matchups of this in this. Where are the iconic scenes in here that were ripped apart and put in here? Still waiting to see them. Besides the weird placement of the interrogation scene. Like, that's the only, like, overlap I see. And even that is more of, like, an echo. It's not exact. It's kind of like similar settings, similar characters for one scene, and then it just deviates off. These are two completely different scenes happening here. So page 54, from the top, Morpheus says, "Look again." Neo turns just as Agent Smith levels a gun at his face. Neo screams. Morpheus says, "Freeze it." Everything except Morpheus and Neo freezes. Neo asks, This isn't the Matrix?" Morpheus says, "No, it's another training program designed to teach you one thing. If you are not one of us, you are one of them." Neo asks, "Who are they?" Morpheus says, "Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system. That means that anyone that we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent. Inside the Matrix, they are everyone and they are no one." Neo stares at the agent. Morpheus continues, "We've survived by hiding from them, running from them, but they are the gatekeepers. They're guarding all the doors, holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them." Neo asks, "Someone?" Morpheus replies, "I won't lie to you, Neo. Every single man or woman who has stood their ground, who has fought an agent, has died. But where they failed, you will succeed." And the scene continues on to the next page. So, let's see what page 54 of the Immortals reads. Brittany's room. Brittany is laying face up on the bed, or on a bed. She is now in her 70s and very frail. Jim enters and closes the door behind him. He walks slowly to her. Jim asks, "Brittany, honey?" He strokes her hair gently from her eyes. Brittany wearily opens her eyes. They are glassy and red. She sees Jim and smiles. There are burn scars on her face. Brittany asks, "Daddy?" Jim replies, "I'm here, honey." Brittany says, "I knew you'd come back. I don't feel so good." Jim sits on her bed and lifts her to him in an embrace. Jim says, "I know, sweetheart, I know." Brittany says, "I missed you so much." Jim starts to cry as he rocks her. This is really messed up. I'll save my opinions for after the rest of the page is read. Jim says, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." Brittany says, "I love you." Jim replies, "I love you and your little dog too." Brittany starts to cry. Jim strokes her hair, letting her talk. Brittany says, "Mommy said to go to my room. Then the house got on fire and I got hurt. a man carried me out of the fire. Oh, man. So I want to say something here. This setup of this scene is not how it appears in Interstellar. Interstellar, you know the daughter and what her motivations are. She's working to try to get in contact with her dad. This, we're just thrown right into Jim's present, and we don't see Brittany having to deal with all of this, what happened after the accident. It's just that there's a fire and all of that. Hey, Beyond the Box, I want to say that you had this motivation in you this whole time. And I want you to keep it. Even if people leave in your life, I want you to keep this motivation. Alright? I'm proud of you. And Beyond the Box says, yeah, he was full of crap, nothing like the movie. And Beyond the Box is talking about Tom here. This whole thing with like, we don't have any backstory to Brittany other than she was just a little girl, and then she's old now and she has dementia, so like, it's a really convenient plot point, or it's a convenient trope that it ends up where Jim doesn't have any repercussions for, like, why did you never come back to me, Daddy? Like, because she doesn't remember, because she has Alzheimer's, right? It's kind of weird. But maybe there'll be more revealed here. I'm still somewhat interested in seeing what happens, so I do give credit where credit's due. This Immortal script is readable. It's not excruciatingly bad. There's some improvements that could be made to it, but again, it's not my script. Tom says this is perfect. But, not everyone is going to agree with him, especially on the whole thing that this script took from this script, when there's so many iconic scenes that have already taken place in this script through our current read-through that doesn't happen in this one. And that's just the way it is. And Tom probably doesn't like hearing that, but that's just, again, that's how it is. So now we're on page 55. We're going to start from the top on the left side here for the Matrix. This is continued in the city. Everything's frozen and Neo and Morpheus are talking. And Morpheus just told Neo that he thinks that Neo will succeed where many others have failed. So Neo asks, why? Morpheus replies, I've seen an agent punch through a concrete wall. Men have emptied entire clips at them and hit nothing but air. Yet their strength and their speed are still based on a world that is built by rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be. Neo scratches his head. Neo asks, what? Are you trying to tell me that I can dodge bullets? Morpheus replies, no, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to. Morpheus's cell phone rings and he flips it open. Tank voiceover. We got trouble. Exterior. sewer main. Or sewer main. The Nebuchadnezzar blisters by, trailing a swirling, supercharged electromagnetic wake. Interior cockpit. Morpheus slides into the co-pilot's chair next to Dozer. Morpheus, did Zion send the warning? Dozer replies, no, another ship. Big Brother, I think. They're running a parallel pipeline. Morpheus scans the decayed landscape of the sewer main that rolls by as Neo and Trinity squeeze into the cockpit behind him. An alarm begins to sound, and this scene is continued on the next page. So, page 55 of the Immortals. Let's start from the top there. Brittany says, I wanted to tell you so you'd say, it's okay now. Jim replies, it's okay now, honey. It's okay. Brittany touches Jim's face and hair. Brittany says, you missed my birthdays. So, my own opinion or personal thought here, is Brittany starting to remember some things? A nurse opens the door. Jim to Brittany, you want a birthday party? Brittany smiles and nods. Yes, slowly, as she touches Jim's cheek. Brittany says, with you. Nurse, irritated, excuse me. Jim sees the nurse. Jim says, nurse, order me a cake. Brittany says, vanilla. Jim to the nurse, a vanilla cake. Brittany says, with blue icing flowers. Nurse says, I want you to leave this room right now. And I assume that this continues on the next page here. So let me get this Matrix page ready. 56. All right. So page 56 of the Matrix. Continued from the last page. Dozer says, shit, Squiddy's sweeping in quick. Morpheus says, set it down in there. Neo asks, Squiddy? Trinity says, a sentinel. It's a killing machine designed for one thing. Dozer says, search and destroy. Neo feels the ship rock to the side as it squeezes into a tiny supply line. Exterior, hovercraft. The Nebuchadnezzar sets down, almost wedged into a pipe that barely accommodates its size. Interior, cockpit. Morpheus clicks the intercom. Morpheus asks, how we doing, Tank? Interior, main deck. Tank works furiously at the operator's station as the ceaseless whir of the ship's turbines grind to a halt. The main deck is plunged into dark silence. The rest of the crew stands behind him as he whispers. And Tank whispers, power offline. EMP armed and ready. Tank's fingers curl around a small key that glows a dim red. Interior cockpit. Neo leans into Trinity's ear. And so this continues on to page 57. But we'll read page 56 of the Immortals, and we'll see how that goes. So, from the top, Brittany desperately says, "No, Daddy, don't leave me alone again." Jim says to Brittany, "I promise, honey." Nurse says, "You're confusing her." Brittany crying, "I knew you wouldn't forget me, Daddy." Jim says, "We're going home, Brittany." Nurse calling down the hall, "Orderly, come here. Quickly, remove this man." Brittany pulls her arms around Jim's neck as Jim picks her up. Jim says, "I'll never leave you again." An orderly enters the room. Orderly says, "Put her down." Jim says, "Get out of my way." Jim runs from the room carrying Brittany and knocking the orderly down. And hall. Jim dashes down the hall with Brittany clinging tightly to him as the nurse yells down the hall for help. Nurse says, "Get security. There's a crazy man kidnapping a patient." I need to check something real quick, guys. Just give me a moment. Alright, we're still live. That's good. So I'm getting this impression that the daughter Brittany is remembering some things, but she's not asking why he looks the same. And here's a page. This is the page where it gets a little messy because there's 2 pages of 57 for Immortals. So I'm not sure how. I think we'll like add an extra page for the next show. We're gonna finish up through page 60 today, though. At least for like Matrix, it'll be 60. Immortals, it'll be 59 because there's 2 57s. Okay, top of 57 for the Matrix. And Neo was leaning into Trinity's ear, and Neo says, "EMP?" Trinity replies, "An electromagnetic pulse. It disables any electrical system in the blast radius. It's the only weapon we have against the machines." Dozer looks up. Dozer says, "Now we wait." Through the cockpit's windshield, the vast cavern of the sewer main yawns before them. Strands of green haze curl around mossy icicles that dangle into a pool of churning frozen waste. Neo begins to ankle around Dozer, but Morpheus grabs him. By the way, I don't think we saw that the residues of the sewer in the final cut. I don't remember those visuals, so that might have been cut out. Morpheus says, "Don't move. It'll hear you." Neo freezes and they wait. Without the Nebuchadnezzar's heating systems, the temperature in the cockpit begins to rapidly drop. The crew members huddle together, their breath freezing into a uniform cloud as it gets colder and colder. That's another thing that could have been visually represented a little more, but they are wearing like hats and shirt and long sleeve sweaters and everything, so it kind of makes sense. There could have been a little more emphasis on that though, because I did not get that when I first watched it, and my sequential repeat viewings of this. I didn't really get the idea that they had to shut the heat off and that they're getting cold now. But that makes a lot of sense, actually. Dozer quietly reaches to brush away the frost on the windshield, and as his hand clears a swath, they see it. In the darkness, a shifting shadow of mechanized death. It is beautiful and terrifying. Black alloy skin flickers like sequins beneath sinewy coils and skeletal appendages. I might have mispronounced some of those words. Neo can feel the hairs on the back of his neck rise as it silently glides over them with shark-like malevolence until it disappears into the darkness. In the frozen little room, everyone breathes a little easier. Interior, hall. The ship is quiet and dark. Everyone is asleep. And now let's read page 57 of the Immortals here. Jim is running through the hospital hallway with his now elderly daughter. And he's being chased by the nursing staff. Brittany, loudly to nurse, "He's my daddy." Other hospital staff chase after Jim. Jim turns some corners finally, coming face to face with a large orderly and a doctor who grab him. Jim looks down and sees Brittany smiling. The doctor looks closely at her. Doctor says she's dead. A female administrator, zero emotions, polished, approaches. Administrator says, "You are to leave and never come back." And then to the others, "All right, it's all over. Get back to your stations." Staff disperse. The large orderly and doctor remain. The administrator looks directly at Jim unsympathetically and knowingly. Administrator says, "Dr. Michaels, would you kindly take the body from Mr. Reese?" Exterior, Willow's Adult Daycare Center, day. Jim exits the center slowly. A tear remains on his face. He has lost everything. He looks up and stops. Berenger and two men in suits stand at a distance watching him. Berenger and Jim stare at each other for a long, icy moment. Jim then walks on, nothing else to lose. Berenger just watches, letting him go. We go to black. Immortals music plays. The caption 2235 AD appears. Fades into 237 AB. What, so Brittany just died because the doctor said so? So she says he's my daddy, and then she dies smiling, and the doctor's the one that reveals she's passed. Like, that's kind of weird. We got 3 pages left. Ay, ay, ay. And this is not how I wanted it formatted. Yikes. Give me a second here. There we go. All right. So, if you notice here, this is also labeled page 57. But it should be, like, sequentially it's page 58, but it's labeled 57. So there's 2 page 57s in this Immortal script. And we are going to page 58 for the Matrix. Okay, so top of page 58 for the Matrix. Interior main deck. The core glows with monitor light. Cypher is in the operator's chair as Neo comes up behind him. Cypher, whoa, shit, Neo, you scared the bejesus out of me. Neo apologizes, sorry. Cypher says, no, it's alright. Neo's eyes light up as he stands closer to the screens that seem alive with a constant flow of data. Neo asks, is that? Cypher says, the Matrix? Yeah. Neo stares at the endlessly shifting river of information, bizarre codes, and equations flowing across the face of the monitor. Neo, do you always look at it encoded? Cypher replies, have to. The image translators sort of work for the construct programs, but there's way too much information to decode the Matrix. You get used to it, though. Your brain does the translating. I don't even see the code. All I see is blonde, brunette, and redhead. You want a drink? Neo nods, and he pours a clear alcohol from a plastic jug. Cypher says, you know, I know what you're thinking, because right now I'm thinking the same thing. Actually, to tell you the truth, I've been thinking the same thing ever since I got here. He raises the glass, and the scene is continued on the next page. So, technically, the 58th page, also labeled 57 of the Immortals, is here. And it looks like it's an alternate scene. So, like, it's not exactly the end, but this was, I guess, the corrected 57. So, Brittany loudly to nurse, he's my daddy. Other hospital staff chase after him. Jim turns some corners, finally coming face to face with a large orderly and a doctor who grab him. Jim looks down and sees Brittany smiling. The doctor looks closely at her. Doctor says she's dead. A female administrator, zero emotions, polished, approaches. Administrator says, you are to leave and never come back. To the others, all right, it's all over. Get back to your stations. Staff disperse. The large orderly and doctor remains. The administrator looks directly at Jim, unsympathetically and knowingly. The administrator says, Dr. Michaels, would you kindly take the body from Mr. Reese? An exterior Willows Adult Daycare Center. So like this whole first half of the page is exactly the same. So after music immortal theme reprise, we go to interior transport dawn from black. Jim looks peaceful laying back in a chair. He has not aged. Through a dome OG glass. I assume that's a typo and he meant to say of. Through a dome of glass, the passenger area affords a spectacular view of a red and gold sky above a vast lush rainforest. People move about dreamlike in the spacious interior. Exterior, Immortals Transport Terminal, dusk. Transports fly slowly above and below, but he put another typo in here, ABND instead of AND. Abund. And slowly above and below us, heading different directions. We approach a city of the Immortals in the distance, neoclassical in design. Transport terminals, Mayan in design, mark the outskirts of the city. Monorails snake to and from the terminals. Landing lights blink. The caption, quote, a city of the Immortals, end quote, appears. Alright. Again, what does this have to do with the Matrix? Alright, and now we're on page 58 here. Sheesh. Should I just read page 58 now? The way I loaded this up, I didn't realize that it was kind of like a repeat. But I want you to see what is in this script that's like so holy according to Tom that it cannot be dissected in any way, shape, or form. It needs to be as is, but like he has typos in it and a page that's repeated in here, so it makes no sense. I'll just read page 58 over here. We'll double it down. I'm gonna have to do something about that page 60 though. So, exterior, Immortals Transport Terminal, dusk. A landing tier high above the rainforest. The music ends as the transport lands. Jim steps off and enjoys a warm breeze in his face. Hans Mandel, a tall, athletic-looking man in his late 20s and a former agent for the Immortals, approaches enthusiastically. Mendel says, Jimbo, welcome back to hell. Jim says, hey, Mendel. Cut to a grim-faced man. It is Steve Davis, Jim's former agent from the CIA office. He seems robot-like as his eyes flick to the left for an instant. Steve's point of view. Jim and Mendel clasp arms at a distance and begin to walk away. That clasp arm? What are you playing Ring Around a Rosie here? Quote, suspect is Jim Reese. Wait for instructions, end quote. Appears in green letters in the lower right of our vision. So this is Steve's point of view. Jim and Mendel are walking. Why do Jim and Mendel clasp arms at a distance and begin? Well, what does that even mean? Mendel says, still playing Gandhi? It's a weird hobby you have, Jim. Jim says, we're making progress. Mendel says, you're being followed. Jim turns and sees Steve glaring from the distance. Jim says, I know him. Jim starts walking towards Steve. Mendel blocks Jim. Mendel says, Jim, don't. He's a Central agent. Jim passes Mendel and continues towards Steve. Steve stares at Jim with an arrogant blankness. Jim calls to him. Jim says, Steve. I don't know how this matches up to that. I don't know how. It's a real stretch. And this is me being as objective as I possibly can be. No, we don't want 60. We want 59 here. Okay. We're almost finished with today's read through. Thank you for being here. We're gonna try wrapping this up in the next few minutes, and then we will start the Let's Talk stream, which should be linked to this show. It should be on the screen once we're done. So page 59 of The Matrix. Let's continue. Cypher's talking with Neo on the deck of the Nebuchadnezzar. Cypher says, why oh why didn't I take that blue pill? He throws the shot down his throat. Neo does the same and it almost kills him. Smiling, Cypher slaps him on the back. Cypher says, good shit, huh? Dozer makes it. It's good for two things: decreasing engines and killing brain cells. Red-faced, Neo finally stops coughing. Cypher pours him another. Cypher asks, can I ask you something? Did he happen to tell you why he did it? Neo looks up, unsure. Cypher asks, why you're here? Neo responds, yeah. Cypher replies, Jesus, what a mind job. You're here to save the world. You gotta be shitting me. What do you say to something like that? Neo looks down at his drink, and Cypher continues, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. Now don't tell him I told you this, But this ain't the first time Morpheus thought he found the one. Neo asks, really? Cypher replies, you bet your ass. It keeps him going. Maybe it keeps all of us going. Neo asks, how many were there? And now let's see page 59 of the Immortals. Steve's eyes flick to the left and look, or shift, let me restart that. Steve's eyes flick to the left and back at Jim. Jim reaches Steve. Mendel halts a short distance away. Bystanders watch at a distance. Those close by clear away. Jim says, you used to work for me. Steve's expression does not change. Mendel looks anxious. Steve says, withdraw the metal object and drop it. Jim says, it's a pen. Jim obeys. The pen clinks upon the ground. Steve pulls a gun and blasts it. Jim to Mendel. He hates writing. Mendel steps towards Steve. All right, that's kind of silly. I'm sorry, that's kind of silly. I don't know why this is even happening in this scene. Mendel says, is Berenger there? Jim to Mendel. Berenger. Steve says, hello, Hans. Jim says, I get it. Multiple personalities. Ask to speak to Elvis. Mendel speaks to Berenger through Steve. Mendel says, Berenger, let him go. Interior, central monitoring room, dusk. Immortals global security. 60 monitors, each manned, display what each agent sees. Their vital signs, name, and rank. Berenger watches over a technician's shoulder as Steve's screen shows Mendel's face. A supervisor calls close by. Supervisor says, the word is not to terminate Jim Reese. Missing Time says the stream is featured on YouTube. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. What is it being featured on the main page for you? I'm glad it's showing it to people. It's about time. Ooh. All right, good. So we have page 60 here. Perfect. We're just going to read these last pages. It's really tough to try to keep this in under 2 hours. My only thing to think of is to put this in the 10-page increments, but it'll be 14 parts to this series. I don't want to do that. Page 60 of The Matrix. Let's go. From the top. Continued. Cypher says, 5 since I've been here. And he's talking about 5 other people that Morpheus has thought he's the one. Neo says, what happened to them? Cypher replies, dead. all dead. Now that's interesting that that's left in here but not put in the final cut. And then it's brought back up and reloaded in the architect scene. Neo asks, how? Cypher says, honestly, Morpheus, he got them all amped up, believing in bullshit. I watched each of them take on an agent, and I watched each of them die. Little piece of advice, you see an agent, you do what we do. Run. Run your ass off. Neo gulps down another shot. Neo says, thanks for the drink. Cypher replies, anytime. Cypher nods as Neo heads for the ladder. Cypher replies, sweet dreams. Interior restaurant, night. Chamber music and the ambience of wealth soak the restaurant around us as we watch a serrated knife saw through a thick, gorgeous steak. The meat is so perfect, charred on the outside, oozing red juice from the inside, that it could be a dream. We hear a voice that we recognize immediately. Agent Smith. Do we have a deal, Mr. Reagan? A fork stabs the cube of meat, and we follow it up to the face of Cypher. And this continues on the next page. But that's where we're leaving off for today's show. But let's read page 60 of the Immortals. Technically, chronologically, it's page 61. But it's labeled as 60 because there were two 57s. So, Behringer hesitates. Supervisor says, Sir, Carrick's hit. He's showing signs of panic. Weston's requesting to aid him. And I have no idea who they're talking about. Behringer to Steve's technician. Let them go. Behringer moves to Weston's monitor, showing Agent Carrick wounded in the leg. Carrick's monitor shows Weston watching nearby. Both men are in their 20s and very military. Supervisor says it was the underground. Behringer lifts a finger guard off a small blue square on Carrick's panel. Carrick's vital signs are returning to normal. Carrick's technician says, Sir, he's calming. He's done it, sir. We need to get him out of here. Or get him out of there. Carrick takes deep, slow breaths as he talks. Carrick, voiceover. I'm okay. Requesting evac. Carrick's life signs bottom out as his screen goes blank. Weston's screen shows Carrick's head shooting into a wall. Carrick's technician lowers his eyes. Behringer to Weston's monitor. Dissolve the remains. I don't know what's happening here. Behringer takes his finger off the blue square and speaks to the supervisor. Behringer says, remind your people not to get too attached to the agents. Steve's monitor shows Jim and Mendel in the distance getting in a hover car. Exterior, Immortals transport terminal. Day. Mandel and Jim finish getting Mandel's hover car. Or getting in Mandel's hover car. Transport terminals lower behind them. Mandel will drive. Mandel says, "You almost got us killed back there." Yeah, I'm still not understanding what happened there. Carrick's life signs bottom out as the screen goes blank. Weston's screen shows Carrick's head shooting into a wall. And then dissolve the... Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, what, did the guy die? They liquefied his body and he's going into another body? I don't even know. This is me making stuff up, filling in gaps that aren't explained here in the script. And where's Cypher in the Immortals here? Is there a Cypher? Tell me in the chat who you think Cypher is. Who do you think Morpheus is? Is it Alan? No? Guys, have any connection that Jim is Neo? I'm not seeing it yet. So that'll be it for today, everyone. I will be doing Let's Talk here in about 10 minutes. So just give me that 10 minutes and we will be starting Let's Talk About It, episode 25. Thank you all for being here again. Lerny, Beyond the Box, Missing Time, Zen Ray. Thank you all for being here in the chat. Missing Time says, these have been two separate stories to me. Yeah, absolutely. We're at the same point in the script now, at page 60. 61 is the next page, and we don't have Jim's character going through what Neo's character's going through, and they're supposed to be the same character according to Tom, and it's not. So there's that. So until next week Sunday, we'll continue this. I want to finish this as soon as possible so that we can cap it off and come to our own conclusions here. But this is also being done so everyone out there can also come to their own conclusions. So just keep that in mind. All right? I'm doing this as a service to all of you. There's been months between this part 2 and then today's part 3, and still not one single word from Tom. So besides him giving me permission to read this on screen, he hasn't said anything to me personally. So there's that. He also might have thought I just gave up. But joke's on him, right? So anyways, until the next one, class dismissed.